Hiya, welcome to Signature Customs and another enthralling episode of the Rolls-Royce Aero Special. This week we are carrying on with the Gearbox theme. A couple of changes from last week, so if you watched last week's episode, thank you very much, and thank you to all the people that took the time to comment about the rotation of the engine. Yes, you're absolutely right, the engine does go the right way and I'm a fool. My total mistake on that, I'm used to working on Porsches, Volkswagens, early stuff. And of course, they all go the other way because the engine's in the back. So, bit of a brain fuddle there. Thanks to everybody who took the time to comment on that. And I have done various checks to make sure that that works absolutely correctly. So, there's a way around that. Easy solve, no problem at all. We've also had a bit of a change of heart on Gearbox, and I'll go through that with you. So, lots going on this week, as well as a bit of machine work. So, I hope you enjoy. And as per normal, please like, subscribe, etc. Thank you very much. Hopefully you remember from last week that I picked up these steel bits from a pal of mine down at Hiscox, and this is what we're going to do with them. So in essence, I need to build a holder which has an outer diameter of 170, a inner of 142. If I get 170, it's the same width as this piece here. I actually want it to be more than that because I'd like it to attach to the tube. So it's the inners more than the outers. I think I'll go to the maximum I can out the bits of steel I've got. I'm just going to clean these pieces of steel off with a bit of thinners. Doesn't take long for thinners just to flash off, obviously. Just going to put some blue through here because I want to try and find the center point. I could well be doing this completely wrong, so I've marked the centre and I've drilled through a little bit, and just for the sake of getting a thing out there, I'm literally going to just start drilling. You get the idea. That took some time, but we're through. So what I'm going to do now is try and put this in the lathe and see if I can then true it up. Sketchy as you like, we'll see how we get on. I'm going to have to make some tooling for this, I think. I have got some tooling that I picked up yesterday, so I might just give that a go, but if not, I might have to make some. Well, as you can hopefully see, I've managed to drill my hole, mount it in the lathe, and then I've just worked it down. Through a lack of setting the lathe up properly, which there definitely is, and a distinct lack of tooling knowledge, it's taken a long time. I've managed to get pretty much all the edges rounded, so I'm just going to finish that off, and then once I've finished that off, I'm going to try and tie the other piece in with it by drilling the same hole in the centre and then basically screwing the two together, or bolting the two together, so I've actually got a way of making them both identical. I'm literally going to turn this down until I've got rid of this flat piece here, which is the last of the flat edges from the square. I've now turned that down so it's all relatively level. As you can see, that fits over there, so we've got plenty of room to take the meat out the middle now to make that fit over here. However, before we do that, I'm going to basically do the same thing to this piece. I'm going to drill a hole through the middle like I did the last one. Hopefully then I'll be able to drop something down in the middle of there to hold them, and then I should be able to just locate them with some nuts and bolts. I'll probably turn it down first before I do that. Well, after many hours in the lathe and on a drill, I've managed to get my two pieces. The next thing I need to do is basically face off two surfaces so I can put them back to back. over by the lathe, and this is, you could probably see this, I think there's a big dip here. So this is like a piece of flat that almost like it's been poured, and it's really not even on that side. So this is going to take some thinning down to get this right. Incidentally, my lathe, which is a lovely old Empire, this is an eBay find, and I need to give it a really good clean. I've got no idea really how it works, so I am just teaching myself as I go, and I'm quite enjoying doing it. Yeah, really enjoying doing this. This was an eBay find and cost me the princely sum of £1.13, including all the fees. I've just cleaned those two surfaces up and I can plonk them together. What I'm going to use to join them together is this, which is actually an exhaust flange maker, so it expands. If I drop that inside there and expand it out, I should be able to get them to stick together in parallel, and then I can mark around the outside, drill some holes and mount from there. I knew that thing would come in handy one day. I bought that from out of a garage sale or something about 3 years ago, and I think I've tried to use it on an exhaust once and it wouldn't move the stainless steel exhaust. So they came in a little box of 3, which are really quite handy, but never as handy as trying to build a gear thing for your Rolls-Royce. I've just marked on here, which I'm sure you can't see, 159mm, which is going to be, to all intents and purposes, my pitch diameter. That will become apparent when I take it off. What I can now do is measure out some points to drill some holes, and then I can join the two together in terms of just bolting them together. I want to mark this evenly, so what I've done is taken a pair of dividers and literally gone 1, 2, 3, 4. This doesn't rotate, so balance isn't necessarily an issue. It's just literally joining together, so I can mill it all up and then I'll join it together permanently, I guess, afterwards. So now I can take this over to the drill press and drill some holes. So what we're going to do now is basically thin out the inside. So we're going to take this section out to just leave us with the band. We're going to do that on both pieces. That's going to take a huge amount of time. So you can have a small amount, but I'm not going to bore you with that. We're pretty much there. So what I'm going to do is now start clearing out this all inside to here, which will leave us with this outer ring, which I can then get that trued up and then do the other one. So lots of time on the lathe. Got the two halves, and basically I'm just going to join these together, and then I'm going to start machining the other side. 4 bolts in, and now we can just drop those through. Drop this through here like so, just to make sure we're still in the ballpark. When I went to the hardware store, B&Q, they only had 50mm or 100mm in M6s, so I needed 60, so I had to go with the big ones. I am just going to trim these off. The thought process now is that we pop this back in the lathe, and we can start taking out this section here. What I should be able to do is get it to the point where this is parallel, and then I can hold it here and just take out the last bit. We shall see. Wish me luck. Go again. I'm getting very close now on the first outer piece, and I've managed to put a parallel on the front edge, which is where I should be able to mount the lathe off now. This is the inner dimension of the gear. So I'm about maybe 3 mil off, and at that point I'm going to leave this and do the other side just in case there's anything crops up that means that I need some tolerance. Been a long day, it's now getting dark, but hopefully you'll be able to see this. So if I offer my little dividers up there, you'll see they just slide in nicely. Okay, and if I now do the same here, you'll see they do the same. So all I've got to do now is just get rid of that shoulder that's in there. In order to mark this, as I do, I'm just going to pop some engineer's blue in here so that I can see when my tooling is touching that level. If you'll trust me, there's no discernible lip there at all the way around. So that's good, and the old calipers fit in. So just to neaten this up a bit, I'm just going to take these M6 little bolts out, remove these, countersink it, tap it out to M8 by 125. So I've just drilled that out to 7.1 mil with on the pillar drill, and I've just used a big countersink just to get it so that the new bolts will sit in there nicely. All I've got to do now is tap it out to M8. I've got a couple of M8s here. I've done a couple of these already. Slightly better tool here, but it only goes down so far because of there's a shank on it here, so I've had to employ a bit of a rubbish one as well just to try and get through, but it works. So this one you can see hasn't got a thread, hasn't got a chamfer on it at the end, so it will go straight through. Clean that out and threaded it through. I can then put in my little M8. Skim these off the back and we'll lock tight these in place. As I mentioned at the top of the video, everybody very kindly pointed out that actually the engine going anti-clockwise is exactly how it should be. And that's good. So as a result, I had to change my little piece that I'd machined up to go over the reverse gear. So I've opened it out just that little bit further and left a collar on the top here for location. And now I need to get the first gear in there. So the first gear, literally it is, I think it's fair to say, an interference fit. There's no movement in there at all. It does rotate, but there's no movement at all. So all I can need to do now is where it's sat in there like so, I just need to drill and tap some holes to make all that sit in there nicely. Ordinarily, inside of here, there is a clutch pack. I won't need that. So in actual fact, what is in here is going to be empty. And this will just be what holds it to the outside of my system. What I've never done is I've never taken this, I'm going to call it a flywheel. It's not a flywheel, it's a counterweight really. I've never taken that off to actually see what's underneath, so I'm going to do that. I'm going to employ my great big Stilsons because I think they have got half a chance of doing it. There we go. What we have here is a screw-on ring, a spacer, and a woodruff key. This was originally attached to the flywheel, very much like this. Actually had a socket on the end, which I presume was for turning it over. So I've just bolted the back end back into place with a couple of what look like M10s or M12s. I've just put a piece of aluminium between that and the actual drive. Okay, obviously this is just a casing on the back of the engine. This is the locator for the what would have been the propeller and is now going to be that drive shaft. So in essence we can use that shaft as it is. We just need to work out what's happening with the oil, but more importantly we can see exactly what we've got there. I'm quite happy to use that block that's already been done. More than happy with that. Or the bolts are labelled. Just gives you some confidence in terms of how this was done, which is good. So our mission doesn't really change. What we actually need to work out is how we get from the end of a great big V12 engine with stupid amounts of torque and power into a diff that was designed to take 20-25 horsepower in 1934. Well, we're familiar with the Planetary as it would sit in a power glide, reverse, main planetary, first gear. We've added to it our first gear holding ring, which will be held within the body of this gearbox when it's made. So to follow its journey, we have on the back of the engine, we have our drive. So this picks up where the propeller is, and the propeller in essence gets mounted in this taper with a woodruff key and is bolted on the other side as we've seen. On the other side of this we have at the moment this circular disc, and this circular disc is bolted to that mass, as we're going to call it. We're going to remake this, and we're going to remake this to sit within this bevel and come out quite a distance as well, because then it's going to have to sit proud over the front leading edge of the drive of the propeller where we took the ring bolt off. We then end up with our input shaft. Our input shaft is actually an output shaft on a power glide. I can get this in a 6-inch length. So we'll come out of here to 6 inches. And at the end of that 6 inches, we will have splines, the same as here. So what we need to manufacture is something that goes from these splines into this piece here. So that's one piece that we need to manufacture. The second piece we need to manufacture is what is our output shaft, what would have been the input shaft on the power glide. So the output shaft will come out of here and will basically then mount onto a flywheel. This happens to be one for a Jaguar. Now, this one has a really nice beveled edge and lots of mounting points, which means that I can physically make a piece that comes off here and goes straight into here with splines on it so that it's all fitted up. It mates and it drives. On the other side of here, we would have your normal flywheel. This one again is nicely recessed. Now it might be that we need to make a flywheel because I need one slightly bigger than this, otherwise I'd use the Jag one. Whether we have this made, custom made with the teeth in the right place, that remains to be seen. Over the top of all this gearing, i.e. this gearing, will be a cylinder, and that cylinder will go over the top with two face plates on it, and those face plates will have bearings that mount inside and also on here to hold everything in place, as they will do on this face as well. So we should end up with that cylinder being able to be supported within the join of the bell housing. So things are obviously allowed to change, and one of the things I've done this week is just had a little look at these gearboxes again. So you will notice a subtle change. I've still got the gearbox in roughly the same place, but I've now gone with two bell housings on the front, and at the back is a gearbox from a Phantom 1, and this is about 5 inches shorter. It's also got much smaller splines on the input shaft, which makes me think it's probably a bit stronger, and possibly got a stronger output at the back as well. It's certainly got a bigger flange, and this gearbox turns, which the other one doesn't. So I'm sat here in the evening, it's getting dark and cold quite quickly, so I thought I'd play about with my steam cleaner that I picked up from a charity shop or somewhere for about £5. Now I'm just going to have a quick play with that. Probably doesn't work, but we'll see. So this thing's pretty cool, and this really helps. So I'll turn the fog off. Anyway, you can probably see it a bit better now. I've literally just given it a quick wipe over with this thing, it's got a brush on the end which is now full of rubbish. Just gives me access to all the nuts and bolts and clears it off a bit. It's just made it so much easier to handle because it's no longer absolutely covered. I'll keep going with this, but I just wanted to do a bit before I went home, if I'm honest. It may seem a bit silly to be cleaning the gearbox, but one of the reasons I wanted to do it was to be able to do a bit of a mock-up. So the gearbox of an undetermined type, other than the fact it's Rolls-Royce, is sat in place. On the front of that, it's now bolted to a bell housing, which is then bolted to another bell housing, which is then aligned with the back of the engine block. As you can see, that gives us a complete run through. Everything is just going to run in one straight line through to the back, and the output shaft is then going to be able to go from there to the differential, and it all fits really nicely down the centre of the car, and that is exactly what we wanted. So I'm super pleased with that. I think that's just dropped into place really, really well. So we've got the back of the engine, which is that machined piece there. That goes onto a 2025 bell housing, in which will contain the great big mass flywheel that we took off from the back of what was the propeller with the tapered fit with the Woodruff key. Coming off that will be a cardan shaft that basically goes to the Planetary gear. The Planetary gear will fit in the second bell housing, and then the Planetary gear will have another cardan shaft that comes off it, which basically goes to a flywheel. That flywheel will then have a clutch, and that clutch will then connect to the gearbox. The gearbox, I'm not too sure exactly what it is. I know it's Rolls-Royce. I think it's either a 20 horsepower or it's a Phantom 1, and I'm not too sure which. So if anybody knows, please let me know. It does have L9T stamped on it in quite a few places. So I don't know whether that's a casting or what, I don't know. But if anybody's got any idea of what that might be, I'd be really pleased to hear that. As you'll see, with the gearbox in place, roughly on height, everything sits pretty much below the deck, which is exactly where we want it. We're going to have to extend the gear shift to the outside. That again is pretty much exactly where I want it from a point of view of being able to reach. The pedals are going to fit in nicely down the side here, and we're still going to have to shorten the steering column. Hopefully you can see it's beginning to look like a drivetrain. One of the things I keep doing with this is mocking stuff up, and I keep sort of just checking things in terms of aesthetics mainly, how this is all going to look when it goes together. It's very difficult when you've just got a chassis sat here with no body. My reasoning behind doing all the mechanical bits first, or at least the vast majority of them, is that I don't want to do anything on the body and then find I've got to change it, because that's going to be A, expensive, and B, time consuming. So if I can get all this set up in a way that I'm fairly happy will work, then I can look at the body afterwards and how the body works. One of the things with this, which possibly doesn't come through in the videos, is that this thing is enormous. It's 15 foot from the back of the spring hanger at the back to the front of the spring hanger at the front. So it's just huge. It really is. It's great, big, massive engineering. It gives us lots of space to put stuff, but it also means that we've got to have things in the right place. And one of those things is me as a driver and possibly a passenger. And I have to be able to look at this and go, right, I've got room for this, I've got room for that. So I've mocked up the gearbox, as you've seen. One of the things that allows me to look at is, have I got room for pedals? Yes. The other thing it also throws up is, have I got room for a dry sump in here? And the answer is yes. I do not particularly want a dry sump at the back. I'd much rather have it somewhere in the chassis. So that's something else that's got to happen. And one of the reasons why we haven't even thought about trying to start the engine yet is because I need to do stuff like electrics, like a dry sump, oil lines, work out how they work, and so on. I mentioned that last week, the second elephant in the room. So as part and parcel of this is obviously trying to sit in it. So if you'll excuse my fence post, I can get in this now. And when I sit in here, I can stretch out. Obviously the steering is going to have to move forwards. I think we can get 8 inches out of it. Gives us plenty of leg room with bent legs for clutch, brake and accelerator. The accelerator could end up coming out here a little bit because the body will come around and work outside of the chassis rails. The steering has got to be trued up because at the moment it moves quite a lot, but it's got to move forwards quite a way. By moving the steering forwards, I can move myself forwards, and if you'll trust me, the gear lever is going to come through the chassis somewhere around here. So if I move forwards about 8 inches, that's going to be absolutely perfect and is going to look fantastic. So I'm really pleased with how the whole aesthetics of it, the proportions is the word I'm looking for, how the proportions of this are all looking really, really good. And it's something I'm checking all the way through because it's something that's probably the most important to me, is how this looks, as well as it actually physically being able to drive, of course. So that brings to a close another episode on the Rolls-Royce Special. Things are really moving on. We've got the gearbox in position now. We know where that's going. I like the look of the OEM parts. I think that's a really good thing. And I like the aesthetics and the proportions, all moving in the right direction. If you want to see what we're getting up to next, you're going to need to watch next time. So please like, subscribe, hit the notifications, leave us a comment, do all the algorithm stuff. It all really helps, as you all know. And I look forward to seeing you in the next episode. Thanks for watching.